Conversations from the Zoom Room.
Hey everybody, Bill here, back on Art Alley in beautiful Solana Beach, California. We have a fantastic new episode of Conversations from the Zoom Room today. This is part 2 of Women in Vision. I hope you caught the first one because very compelling. We're going to hear from some of the best and brightest ODs in the nation. We're going to hear about a couple different topics. First of all, we hear about family versus career and how to balance that. Next, we're going to talk about the wage gap, right, and how to negotiate what you're truly worth. We're going to hear some predictions for 2030. Get ready for that. And last but not least, we have some amazing reading recommendations coming up. So let's take it away. Conversations from the Zoom Room.
I mean, I think, when we talk about particularly women as it pertains to optometry, is that we are seeing a shift in the demographics of students, right? For so many schools, there are more women enrolled than men. Yep. And I think fundamentally you have a generation where there were just more men. There were more men optometrists than there were women. So just obviously from a numbers perspective, there were less opportunities for women to ascend to the top. And now I think you do have an empowered generation of women who, I know Sheryl Sandberg is like canceled because Facebook is like destroying democracy, but Lean In was really valuable to me in particular as an ambitious woman when I was in college and optometry school, and her concept of like, just stay in, just don't throw in the towel. And even reading Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, she talks about when motherhood became a part of her life, she took a part-time job and she ended up realizing that she was working full-time hours and juggling her kids, but without any of the benefits of full-time work. So for her, she made the conscious decision, I will never take a part-time job again. I will only take a full-time job, and I will bring my kids with me, and I will let you know this is my full self. But to me, I think seeing women like that telling their stories and women who have achieved that success, explaining how they've done it, has empowered me to understand that to break the glass ceiling, I have to stay in the race. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of staying in the race. And even if you have to kind of move things around or shift things or change how it looks, you have to stay in the game. And I think that is, to me, it gives me a lot of hope and inspiration, because if you look at the numbers and how women are continuing to be speaking specifically within the context of optometry, how women are continuing to be enrolled at a higher rate than men, if that trend continues, there will be no choice but to have women in leadership positions, because that is what the demographic demands. So I think that there is a shift happening both in, number one, kind of what Kate was saying, right? Finding that space in your home, that home within yourself. I mean, I, in college, felt like I'll be an optometrist for a little bit, then I'll stop working and I'll go on and do something else. But now I definitely feel more of a responsibility to stay in the profession in some capacity, because if you can, you must.
I mean, everything that you guys said is awesome. So a lot of the things that actually Jen was saying about having a child and feeling that guilt is exactly why I've always never said I wanted to have children. I've never said I didn't want to have children, but I can't commit my brain to thinking that makes sense if I want to love what I'm doing and devote all the time that I want to my job, right? And one of the things that I've always thought about with women in general is actually, to a certain extent, we're almost our worst enemy when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I will have that bias about another woman. I will think that they want to have a family and they want to do all this stuff, and then they're going to forget about the job that they have with me and all the things that I want to do and the things I want to go. It's not just men who have these thoughts, it's women who have these thoughts too, right? When you talk about controversial things in the election and stuff like that, more women voted for Trump than voted for Hillary, right? That's crazy, right? So, I mean, we will undermine ourselves to a certain extent because we haven't hopped on board on the idea that we can be leaders and we can go forward. A lot of women choose optometry because it's flexible and they don't have to invest that way, right? It can be their fun thing and they can have a family, which is awesome. And they should have that flexibility if they want to have that. But I often think that the old guard of the 10 white men who run optometry might stay there because they're going to be the people who keep getting brought up, and like you were saying, you bring your friends with you. It might be the same thing that keeps coming, you know? Not a positive note, but that's kind of the thing that I think about when I think about all this stuff and becoming a leader.
We have one male in this room right now. So I would love to hear his perspective. Bill, think about what we are discussing.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Bidisha. I appreciate that. So I see positive change happening in our industry. I've been working in the industry in various capacities since I was 22. I started as a frame rep in San Diego and started a company. And I've been involved in the industry, the Vision Council and so forth. And I'll just use that as one example. The Vision Council is you all know, it's an organization that represents a lot of different interests. When I first started going to the Vision Council as a white man, it was like, wow, there's a lot of white men here, and they're all way older than me, right? I'm like, man, this is a total good old boys club. And frankly, I felt discriminated against as, a young white man. So I can't imagine what other women felt like, and different ethnicities. And it was just like, wow. And there was never any like, oh, you can't come here because this is our club. It was never that. But, just that as sort of a barometer of the industry, the diversity within that organization, the fact that, Ashley Mills is now the CEO, the meetings that happen, it has really, we've come a long way, not far enough yet in the industry. So I'm seeing that as kind of a microcosm of what's happening in the industry. From the optometry side of things, obviously the people who are coming out of optometry school, we are definitely more female now than we were before. So I think there's a lot of movement in the right direction, and I hope it continues. And the one thing I wanted to mention around that is, this issue of income disparity. And Bidisha and I were talking about income disparity last week as we were preparing for this, and it's an interesting, troubling topic because, we're hiring, a bunch of people right now. And so I've been conducting a lot of interviews and so forth. And, I would really encourage all women to negotiate more. I'm doing these Zoom interviews with a couple finalists for this position we're hiring for. And, the guys are like, okay, what's my deal? And what's the comp? And how can I get this? And I need another 10 grand. And, what about this? And give me a Ferrari or whatever, I didn't get asked for Ferrari.
I mean, are you giving Ferraris? Because I can change what I'm doing if you're giving out Ferraris.
Yes, it's a Ferrari with a Yugo engine. It's all chill, we're so well. But it's interesting, just to see the difference between who asks for what. And I really would like to see women ask for what they deserve, right? And be bold about it. Because I think what happens in a lot of hiring situations is, whoever's doing the hiring, they're like, I don't want to pay out, I'll pay out what I can pay out, right? And then you find out later on that somebody's, wow, this person making 20 grand more than me, they're doing the same job. And I'm probably working hard, right? So I'm just curious about that, just any input around this wage disparity and income disparity.
In my personal experience, so last year I was actually interviewing for a really big job in optometry, and it was a job I wasn't qualified for because I'd only been out of school for 4 years. But a male colleague actually recommended me for the job because he couldn't take it. And when we had a conversation about recommendation, or he recommended me for the job, and I was able to ask him, when the salary negotiation piece came up, how much did you ask for and what were you saying? And I was really happy that I did, because the number I was going to ask for was literally $60,000 less than what he asked for. And had I not talked to him, I probably would have. And I really, from Lean In is where I lean in that book. It truly talks about negotiating and how much men negotiate more than women. And it talks about asking male colleagues what they make. And I took that advice for myself. And in that particular situation, it was shocking because I came back with he told me the number, so I told him the same number he told them, and they said, cool, next steps, like, what's interview. And I'm like, I would have missed out on literally 60 grand had this opportunity really been for me, had I not asked, someone else what they were doing. So I think negotiating is important, but like communicating with our male colleagues and understanding what are they asking for and what are they getting paid, and letting them be allies in that negotiation process is valuable as well.
Okay, I know you've done a lot of research on this topic, and you have like some stats that honestly were pretty disappointing about how even when women negotiate, we still don't end up as much as what men get after they negotiate.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. So I don't have the exact stats off the top of my head. I can tell you the generalized view, and then because also I can't fully reveal all the stats yet because we're hoping to have a publication or some articles out in a large publication here soon. So that's the goal. So I can't reveal it all because if I do, then they'll say, sorry, you told. So what that looks like is when the first number that I can kind of talk about is when women and men come out of optometry school, the average salary for all full-time positions everywhere in the United States, it doesn't matter if you've done residency or not, we did not take that into account on this number, is the average first year starting salary is $105,000. So 105 with 3 other zeros. And that's for women. For men, it's 107. So we still have that $2,000 difference there. So let's say that women come in and they say, haha, I'm going to negotiate. Women are intensely better negotiators than men, according to our data. Women will be able to get more money from their negotiation than men will, but that doesn't make up for the beginning starting difference. So the difference is so big in some places, even when women negotiate, they don't necessarily reach that same level that a man will be able to get. So a couple of things to kind of bounce off and really lean into that topic of negotiation is one, knowing your worth. And asking your male colleagues is number one, perfect. Two is actually like literally going to the U.S. Labor and Statistics Bureau in Statistics online resource and looking up in your area what's the average salary for what you want. So let's say you want to be an associate OD, like that's most people. So that's what they kind of look at, as well as you can look, this is for any profession. You can look up what's the average for the job title you're looking for, and you can see what that is. And then you can even break it down a little bit more. Usually you can do male and female and kind of see what that looks like. And that's tax reported information from businesses' taxes in that area. So it's like the cream of the crop when it comes to data. It doesn't tell you necessarily if, when you're looking at salaries of whether that's a base salary, whether that's going to be a production bonus, all of those things, but you'll be able to get a really good number for yourself. Knowing that number, so when you walk in, I always say you've got to go above that. Approximately 10% is the data that has been shown by courses that I've taken through Yale, as well as the AAUW courses I teach. So you've got to kind of boost it up. But then also the biggest thing is sometimes, especially when you just get out of school, this is for all people, but we've seen the numbers rise more with women, is that we will take whatever we can get because we feel like we just need to have a job. Yeah. It's like you see the student loans, you're like, I want a job. Is also knowing your walk away value, saying, no, this isn't enough for me. And knowing that, because that's going to be a huge negotiation tool. Because as women and men do negotiate, we also come back into that double bind of how the negotiation is perceived. So as we kind of step into that world of negotiation and looking at how women and men negotiate different, one thing to be considerate of as we kind of look at the numbers is that women, you do a great job. So we need to know that about ourselves, but we just need to know what those numbers are so we can be able to ask, as well as knowing that value, that this is my base value that I cannot go below. Because if we all have a base value where like, we cannot go below this number, that just raises the standard for everybody. Because when everybody, men and women, negotiate, that wage gap does lessen. So it doesn't matter if there is a less of a wage gap when we look at numbers overall of everybody negotiating compared to when there's no negotiation that occurs. That wage gap is larger when no negotiation occurs on either party side.
So we're jumping around a little bit, but this next one has to do with the next generation. Okay, so the question is, what do we need to do to inspire the next generation to move things forward and accelerate change?
I always kind of love this topic because I love students, to be honest. I love when students reach out to me. I love mentoring students and helping them kind of navigate as they kind of transition and go forward, right? And that's not even just like students anymore right now. I guess I'm 2 years out, so now I have knowledge about what happens in the world, I guess. I always love to be able to help people learn about stuff. Like I just did a post on Instagram about how I fit a 7-year-old in soft contact lenses for myopia management, right? And so I had a bunch of people reach out and ask like, wow, how did you figure out, how did you feel comfortable doing something like that? And I'm like, this is the youngest person I've ever done it on. It's the first time I've ever done this. But I kind of just jumped in and went for it, And I think part of the things that we can help each other do that and be able to do that is do the social media posts and stuff like that. The weird stuff that you do that will change the difference, inspire someone to do it, is a good way to do it. I'm part of this group called the Young ODs of America. I'm the liaison for the San Francisco Bay Area. And we actually do a really good job, because we don't have chapters in every state, but a lot of the major states, Texas, New York, California, kind of spread all over. We try to really just help people, bring up new topics, think about how can we keep propelling our entire profession forward, right? So we'll talk insurance. How can I maximize my VSP, right? Everyone has a differing opinion on VSP right now, but how can I make more money off VSP? We'll hit that topic, right? Because everyone wants to make more money. We want to take more money from the insurance companies rather than taking it from the patient, right? And so how do we maximize those kind of things? How do I build a specialty into my practice? How do I do that? If I've never touched this thing, what do I do? How do I build that confidence, So we try to help people with that, with the Young ODs. I really like the group and being involved in that one.
When I talk to students or whenever I speak to the next generation, I just always empower them to find the career that fits for them. And don't try and fit a square peg in a round hole. I felt like all through school, that's what I was trying to do. Everybody says you do this, you got to do A, B, C, and D, and it has to look this way, it has to be this way, it has to sound this way. And it never aligned for me. And for many, many years, I felt like I have to change professions. I'm making the wrong decision because this doesn't, I don't love this the way other people do, or I don't love that the way other people do. So there's not a fit for me. Whereas that's not true. It's just a matter of finding, number one, what you don't like. Those are points of information for you to help you point you in the direction of what you do like. So really when I think about the next generation and inspiring them, my goal is to always empower them to know that you can create the career that you want, particularly in this profession. And so, there's never a world in which, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Fairfax Avenue, but it is the streetwear capital of the world. It's Supreme and Joe, it is very casual, very cool, very hip. And I would have never imagined in a million years I'd be wearing sneakers to work, and that patients love it. And it's oh my, these that we be playing rap music over the speakers. I walked in what kind of office is this? But that actually really fits, and it really is aligned with me. And I would have never known that something like this existed for me. And it is through trial and error and through really a belief that there is the path for me and I can bring my whole self to work. So I think when we talk about inspiring the next generation, I think we can expand the conversation between, do you want to work corporate or do you want to work private practice, into a much broader conversation about, do you want to do this, do you want to do that, do you want to have, there are so many options and there are so many channels. So I think really empowering students and young people entering the profession to know that you can truly design the life you want and create the career you want, and that is the benefit of optometry as compared to other professions.
I love that, because you guys both kind of talking about fostering students and building them. And I know how, Danielle, at first you struggled with this profession and then you found the way to do it in a way that you loved. And it's so easy to get siloed early in your career in doing optometry in a way that's not fulfilling. So having that education right from the start, when they hear for you, hey, this career is what you make it. You can practice how you want to practice. I think a lot of optometry schools are under pressure right now because they're having a hard time getting applicants. We know that there's a very low applicant to available seat ratio right now, and they're having a really hard time getting diverse applicants.
Really?
Less than 3% of optometry school students are African American. It's around 5% for Hispanic or Latin American. So I think we can't just put it all on the schools. The schools, of course, need to do their part in this, but each optometrist in our local community, what are we doing to engage our patients with this profession? We see families, we see kids. Are you talking to them about this profession? Do you have opportunities where you're getting people in your office to shadow? I know with COVID right now, shadowing is much more complicated than it's ever been. So we actually decided at our practice this year to hire a summer intern instead. So we're having someone in the office that's trained, that knows what to do with proper health and cleaning. We're not just having someone following us around that's only there for a couple hours. But I want people in my community to know about this profession. And a great way to do that is to engage with your community and bring them in. And so we shouldn't be waiting till it's time to apply for optometry school for people in our community to know about optometry. And all your staff, all these great people that you work with that are so good at eyes, oh my gosh, encourage them and empower them to go on to optometry school. They are not going to be your technician for the rest of their lives. This is not a career for them forever. They learn so much about eye care while they're with you, and support them to go on to like that next step. And I think so many of the people that work in our office would make great optometrists if we helped encourage them to go that direction.
And I will add something like, specifically as a mom, that I want to be the example that I want my kids to follow. So with my boys, I'm a mom of two 11-year-old boys, they're twins. And so I want them to choose life partners for themselves who's like me, ambitious, who provides, who believes in equal opportunity. So a small example again from the time when my boys were 4 years old. It was their birthday party, and I had invited all the kids from the daycare for the birthday party. And one of my sons was playing with a toy car. And a little girl comes by and asks him, Nirvan, will you share your car with me? I want to play with it. And my son said, no, boys play with cars, girls don't play with cars. And the girl's mom was standing right there. So I immediately went up to Nirvan and I said, Nirvan, that's not right. Why do you think girls can't play with cars? Don't you see mom drive a car? Doesn't mom come and pick you up in a car? Both boys and girls should be playing with cars. You need to share your toy with her. He did, and the girl's mom came and said, wow, that's a nice reply you give to your son. I said, yeah, I need to teach him from a very young age that he should not be discriminating. So this is a small example, but it's important that we start teaching from a very young age on how, and inspiring our next generation on what is right, how to treat others, how to be fair and equitable.
Absolutely, and I'm really into this idea, you guys, about going out and evangelizing your profession, right? Because you never know. I had a situation last year where somebody came to me, they reached out and they said, you spoke at our school like 8 years ago, right? And you're so inspirational. I got really inspired to get into design because of you. And, I thought, okay, I'm going there for an afternoon, I'm talking, something. It was one thing in my calendar. It wasn't like, oh, I'm totally out to do this and
right.
inspire. But, just think of all the people you can inspire. And, maybe they chose this profession because of you. So you're doing great things.
I work with League of Women Voters, which is a voters registry. So the League of Women Voters started with the women's suffragette movement of 100 years ago to get women the right to vote. So I actually sit on the board for my local chapter, and this Saturday at 10 a.m. I work on the virtual advocacy. So I take all their ideas, and I am able to put it into ways for us to do it on social media, virtually, and all those different options. So I will be talking with all of them about an LGBTQ rights initiative that we're having at the end of August so that we can be able to do that virtually and be able to help people be able to change their gender on their driver's license or their birth cert or on their social security or all of their legal documents, as well as be able to give them legal rights on changing their names, all things of that nature for a lot of our trans members of our society.
Wow.
Well, on Saturday at 10 a.m., I will be at work. So I work Saturdays. I work right now. Because of COVID, we're doing 3 days a week. That's how much we're open. So Saturday is one of those days. But on Sunday at 10 a.m., I will be in Joshua Tree, California by myself having a birthday retreat, solo vacation. I love to travel alone and just be by myself. So I'm going to be in the desert by myself, just soaking it in, relaxing, taking a break, turning my phone off, and completely unplugging from reality.
Fabulous.
Awesome.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi. This background looks so empty. And there's like cardboard boxes.
Yes, I see a box there.
Yes. So we bought a house and we are moving on Saturday. And my job is to have the baby outside of our home while the movers are here. So we're going to go visit my grandpa and not be in the way of all the movers. And then hopefully my husband takes care of everything and magically we're all moved in and the whole house is set up by the time it is time for nap time.
Nice. Big year for you, buying into your practice, getting a home. Wow.
I know. Our bank account is in pain at the moment, but this is what we work for, is to enjoy, the fruits of our labor. So this year I'm like really digging into that and making the investment in the rest of my life's happiness.
Cool.
Well, my yoga studio is closed as of today.
Yeah, right.
More than likely, yes. I was encouraged by somebody yesterday. They said, just put it on your big screen, and it's great. And do the interactive class, this class at this time. Don't deal with the stigma of that it's just video. So I'm like, okay, so yes.
So now that half the year has passed and 2020 is not the year we expected it to be, what is your vision for 2030?
So this comes up. So my husband is not in eye care. Okay, he works in biopharm, and he constantly asks me, well, what is your 10-year plan? And I keep telling him, like, 10 years in optometry, like something happens next week that I'm not prepared for. I think this profession is very difficult to predict exactly what practice looks like 10 years from now, the technology that's going to exist, the way that we deliver care. What I am very confident about is that optometry is a valuable service to our patients, and we are going to continue to adapt and change to serve the needs of our patients with the technology that's available. So the best way to do that care, we'll be there to provide it. And I just encourage doctors to be flexible. Like, don't get too stuck in like, this is the way optometry is done, and this is the way we have to do it because it's the way we've always done it. Like, things are changing with us left and right, with legislation, with the way insurances are reimbursing us. We have got to keep thinking on our feet and embrace this uncertainty of how practice is going to look to really thrive on that. So I'm trying not to get too caught up on what next week looks like right now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jen, and I am optimistic and hopeful that 2030 will look a lot different than 2020. I think the beauty of this year is that we have all taken a collective pause and we are all given the opportunity to reimagine society and rethink about the future that we want to create. And I am optimistic that this time of reflection, both as individuals and as a collective, as a country, and even globally, as a planet, I think that we are being given an opportunity to readjust our course and again reimagine a future that is inclusive and equitable and more just for everyone. So will it be perfect in 10 years? I mean, it's probably not going to be all rainbows and butterflies, but I am hopeful that not only just within the profession of optometry, but within the greater context of the world, that things will be better because of this year and this collective pause and this slowdown and this sort of societal reset that we're all being given.
Danielle, you literally took the words right out of my mouth. I totally understand why people are like 2020 is canceled. They don't want 2020 anymore, but I really have seen this as some of the most valuable work that I've seen individuals and the collective country and world do together. I mean, how often do you get to see an opportunity for the whole world to kind of go through something at once? I mean, literally I think the last time it happened was about 100 years ago when there was the last pandemic, something that kind of happened all at once. And I read voraciously. I am constantly reading a book, and I just read the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and I highly recommend that one as well. And she talks consistently about how do you imagine your world more perfect and more beautiful? And I just see 2030 as an opportunity for me to kind of put my sights on that that also tomorrow doesn't have to be perfect, that there is time, that there's opportunity and there's time to make that 2030. There is availability to be flexible. There's availability for things to change in positive and negative ways, but I always believe good outweighs the bad. And I keep imagining a more beautiful and more perfect world that just includes every race, color, religion, sexual orientation, gender, just gender identity, just how we identify as humans. It'll be more equitable in 2030. I mean, I think also it's kind of funny as an optometry little pun, like 2030, people like, ooh, my vision's just a little bit off. But I think it also gives us that moment to realize that we can also be 20 happy with that too. And just kind of be in a space where that's okay as well. Because I'm a 20 happy patient. And so I can be 20, 30 sometimes and I'm okay with it. So if I can be okay with it, everybody else can too.
Just jumping in on the 10-year vision, I just went through a process. We're doing a process right now where a day a week, my partner and I are basically going to my backyard and doing strategic planning. And it's, we're like, where should we do it? He's like, where's your backyard? It's great. Let's do it there. So we've got our flip chart out and we're following a system. It's a book called Traction. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend this. It's fabulous. It's great business planning. And one of the things that you start with is your 10-year vision. And this is obviously business plan, but it's incredibly uncomfortable to get into that realm of, what's 10 years? And you throw out all these crazy ideas. But, through the process, you go 10 years, then 3 years, then 1 year. Right. And to do this just opens up so many possibilities. And I think it was 2.5 weeks ago, we set our 10-year vision. And it's a big number financially, but also the more important thing was, we set our ambition that, we want software that we're building to be used in half of the optometry practices in North America. Right, because not so we'll make all the money, but moreover, so we can create delight in the field of optometry. Right, so that's the thing. And so, without doing that kind of 10-year forecast, that none of that stuff would come together. So, I'd say lean into the long range and see what's possible. I'm excited to see where you all are in 10 years. I'm sure amazing places. Any closing thoughts or questions or anything before we go off into the wild blue yonder?
No, I appreciate the invitation. I feel like I'm surrounded by a bunch of rock stars, but I appreciate the invitation. I had a great time. It was really fun.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great panel. I agree. Awesome. And great company.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for
thank you, everyone.
letting this one dude in the group. Really appreciate it, you guys. So thank you so much. I have utmost respect for all of you. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a wonderful night.
Take care.
Conversations from the Zoom Room.